The night was bitter and cold. The wind cut across the small town like a knife, carrying with it a silence so deep it almost felt alive. Houses stood dark and quiet, their windows glowing faintly from heaters and fireplaces. But outside, the streets were empty, frozen, and forgotten. A man stepped out of his old wooden house, pulling his coat tight around his body. In one hand, he carried a flashlight. At his side walked his loyal dog, a strong shepherd with sharp eyes and ears that twitched at the slightest sound. The man liked to take his dog out before bed, even on nights like this, when the cold could freeze breath into white smoke. The dog sniffed the ground, paws crunching on the thin layer of frost. The man watched his breath curl into the dark air and whispered, "Quick walk, boy. Then we go back inside." His voice was soft, but even he could hear how lonely it sounded against the stillness of the night. They walked down the path leading into the woods. The man had walked this way many times, but tonight something felt strange. The silence was too heavy, and the air carried a sense of waiting. As if the night itself was holding its breath. The dog suddenly stopped. His body went stiff, ears pointed forward. He gave a low growl, deep in his throat. The man lifted his flashlight, pointing it toward the trees. At first, he saw nothing, just branches swaying in the icy wind. But then, at the edge of the light, he noticed something small. Something moving. The beam of light fell on a shape crouched near the roots of an old tree. It was small, smaller than a child. The figure trembled, wrapped in shadows. For a moment, the man thought it was an abandoned child left alone in the freezing night. His heart tightened. He stepped closer, calling out softly, "Hey, are you okay?" The figure shifted. That was when he saw her face. It was not a human face. Her skin was pale, almost silver, glowing faintly under the flashlight. Strange glowing lines ran across her cheeks and arms, as if carved into her skin. Her eyes were too large, too bright, shining like pools of liquid light. She looked fragile, weak, and she was shivering violently in the cold. The man froze. His dog barked once, then quieted, tail low but not attacking. The girl lifted her head, her lips trembling. She opened her mouth, and words came out in a language the man had never heard before, soft. Broken sounds filled with fear. But then, in the middle of those strange words, she spoke one clear word in English: "Help." The man felt his heart pound in his chest. He had no idea who she was or what she was doing here, but one thing was clear: she was in trouble. He knelt down slowly, keeping his hands open to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he whispered. "I won't hurt you." The girl flinched as the wind blew harder. Her thin clothes were torn, barely covering her body. Her lips were blue from the cold. She tried to stand, but stumbled, too weak. The dog moved closer to her, sniffing gently, as if he understood her fear. Strangely, she did not pull away from the animal. Instead, she placed her shaking hand on its fur, and for the first time, her face softened just a little. The man glanced at the sky. For a second, he thought he saw something, distant lights moving among the stars. Not like airplanes, but faster, sharper. His stomach twisted. Whatever this girl was, she had not come alone. The girl's glowing eyes locked onto his. She pointed one thin finger upward, toward the sky. Then her voice, weak but urgent, whispered again. The man could not understand the full meaning, but he felt the terror in her tone. And then he heard it. A low hum. A sound too smooth to belong to anything human. It grew louder, filling the night, pressing against his ears. The dog barked furiously, hackles raised. The man tightened his grip on the flashlight, heart racing. He looked back at the girl, who now pressed herself against the roots of the tree. Covering her head as if hiding from something above, the man swallowed hard. This was no ordinary night. This was no ordinary child. The sound in the sky grew closer. A sharp flash of light cut across the darkness, sweeping over the trees like a searchlight. The girl whimpered, pulling the dog closer to her side. The man felt his whole body go cold. Something or someone was searching the woods, and it wasn't human. The man stood frozen under the trees, his dog still barking at the strange light that swept across the sky. The alien girl was shivering so hard she could barely stay upright. Every instinct in his body told him to run back to the safety of his house, lock the doors, and forget what he had seen. But when he looked at hers, those glowing eyes full of fear, her small body trembling, he knew he couldn't leave her there. "Come on," he whispered urgently. "You can't stay out here." He bent down and offered his hand. For a moment, the girl hesitated. Then, slowly, her cold, glowing fingers touched his. Her hand felt lighter than air, yet warmer than her thin body suggested. He pulled her up gently and guided her toward the path. The dog walked close to her side, growling low, as if warning off unseen enemies. Behind them, the sky hummed again. Another beam of light passed through the trees, scanning the ground. The man's chest tightened. Whoever was searching would find them if they didn't move quickly. He quickened his pace, his boots crunching on frozen leaves. The girl stumbled, but forced herself to keep up, clutching his sleeve with desperate strength. When they finally reached his house, he shoved the door open and pulled her inside. He slammed it shut, locking it fast. His breath came heavy as he leaned against the door, listening. Outside, the night was alive with strange humming sounds. Growing distant but not gone, the dog trotted to the girl's side. She sank down near the fireplace, curling her thin arms around her knees. Her glowing skin flickered faintly in the dark room, like a candle on the edge of burning out. The man hurried to throw logs into the fire. The flames rose, sending warmth across the room. The girl extended her small hands toward the heat, staring at the flames as if she had never seen fire before. He crouched beside her, speaking softly. "You're safe here, at least for now." She turned her head slowly toward him, eyes wide. Her lips moved, forming words in that strange language, again soft, melodic, but full of sadness. He shook his head. "I don't understand," he said, trying to smile gently. Then, to his shock, the girl lifted one trembling finger and pointed toward the television in the corner. The screen was off, dark and silent. Before he could move, the TV flickered to life by itself. The screen glowed with static, then formed into a strange symbol, circles within circles, glowing with the same light as the girl's skin. The man's mouth went dry. He hadn't touched the remote. The girl's eyes reflected the strange image as she whispered something low and urgent. Her voice cracked, but he understood one word clearly in English. "They. Coming." The dog barked suddenly, leaping to the window. The man followed quickly and peeked outside. Through the frost on the glass, he saw faint shadows moving in the woods. Not human shadows. They were too tall, too wide, bending at strange angles as they passed between the trees. His stomach churned. Whoever these creatures were, they were close. Too close. He turned back to the girl. "Why are they after you?" he asked, his voice sharper now, filled with fear. She looked down, her small hands shaking in front of the fire. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into the torn cloth around her waist and pulled out a small object. It looked like a crystal, glowing faintly, humming with a low sound that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. She held it tightly to her chest, as if it was the only thing keeping her alive. The man stared at it, then at her. "Is that what they want?" he whispered, the girl's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head quickly, then nodded, then whispered something he couldn't understand. But he didn't need the words, he could see it in her fear. The hunters wanted her, and they would tear apart everything to find her. Suddenly, A heavy thud rattled the window. The dog barked furiously, teeth bared. The man's heart leaped into his throat. Slowly, he moved closer to the glass. A dark figure loomed just beyond the trees, its glowing eyes scanning the house. The man ducked low, pulling the curtain shut. He turned back to the girl. "They know you're here," he whispered urgently. "We can't stay." The girl clutched the crystal tighter. She looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with silent pleading. Her lips formed a single word again, in that broken English that made his blood run cold. "Help." The man's mind raced. He had no plan, no weapon, no idea what these creatures wanted besides her. But one thing he knew, if he left her to them, it would mean her death. The sound outside grew louder, footsteps crunching on the frozen ground. Then came another sound, a metallic clatter, like claws scraping against the walls. The dog barked at the door, fur bristling. The man's breath came fast. He grabbed his coat again, looking at the girl. "We're leaving now." The girl's eyes widened, glowing brighter as the shadows outside pressed closer. And then the door handle rattled. The door rattled again, harder this time, shaking against its frame. The dog barked and lunged, claws scraping the wood floor. The man's chest tightened as fear rushed through him. Whoever or whatever was outside, it was not human. The handle twisted once more, slow and steady, as though the creature on the other side was testing the lock. The man pressed a finger to his lips, signaling the girl to stay quiet. She hugged the glowing crystal to her chest, trembling, her luminous eyes wide with terror. The firelight flickered against her pale skin, making her look even more fragile. Outside, heavy footsteps crunched in the frost. More than one. The sound circled the house, moving from one window to another. Shadows slipped past the curtains. The man could hear low voices, guttural and sharp, speaking in a tongue that sounded like grinding metal. His blood ran cold. They were hunting, and they were close. He leaned close to the girl, whispering, "We can't stay here. Back door. Quiet." She nodded quickly, though fear made her hands shake. He motioned to the dog, and together they moved through the dark hallway. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like thunder in the silence. The girl's glowing skin made it hard to hide, so he grabbed a blanket from the couch and wrapped it around her shoulders. She held it tightly, hiding her light as best she could. At the back of the house, he turned the lock slowly. The night air rushed in, cold and sharp. For a moment, the woods looked empty. But then came another sound, a mechanical hum, soft but growing stronger, like metal wings cutting through the air. He froze above the tree line. Strange machines floated silently, their lights scanning the ground like search beacons. They moved with precision, weaving through the forest as though guided by the hunters below. The man felt his throat tighten. If they ran now, they would be seen. The dog growled low. The girl pressed against him, clutching his coat sleeve. Her lips moved in a whisper, her voice broken but urgent. "Hide. Hide." He scanned the yard. There was an old shed near the back, its door half broken, the roof sagging. It wasn't much, but it was better than standing exposed. He guided her quickly toward it, boots crunching against the frozen ground. Every step felt louder than it should. They slipped inside the shed, pulling the door shut behind them. The air inside smelled of dust and rusted metal. Broken tools lay scattered on the floor. The girl crouched low, pulling the blanket over her head. The dog lay beside her, silent now, as if he understood the danger. The man peered through a crack in the wooden wall. His breath caught. Two figures stepped into the yard. They were tall, at least 7 feet, their bodies covered in dark armor that seemed to ripple like liquid. Their faces were hidden behind masks with glowing slits for eyes. Each carried a weapon that pulsed with blue light. The hunters, they moved with eerie grace, scanning the ground, their strange language buzzing through the night. One bent low, touching the dirt with long, clawed fingers. Its mask flickered with symbols as though reading invisible tracks. Then it stood tall, pointing toward the house. The man's heart pounded. They knew she had been there. It was only a matter of time before they found the shed. The girl's glowing crystal pulsed in her hands. She closed her eyes, whispering something fast, desperate. The man couldn't understand her words, but he saw the fear etched across her face. She wasn't just afraid of being caught, she was afraid of what would happen if they caught her. The hunters spread out, one circling the front of the house, the other moving toward the back. The shed shook slightly as heavy footsteps approached. The man clenched his fists, sweat dripping despite the cold. He had nothing, no gun, no weapons, just an old wrench on the ground beside him. He picked it up, holding it tight. The dog gave a low rumble, ready to fight. The girl shook her head, whispering, "No, no fight." But her eyes were full of sorrow, as if she knew a fight was coming whether they wanted it or not. Suddenly, the shed door creaked. The handle moved slowly, testing. The man held his breath, pressing back against the wall. The girl buried her face against the dog's fur, clutching the crystal tight dot. The door rattled again, harder. A deep growl echoed from the creature outside. Then dashed silence. The man dared to peek through the crack. The hunter stood only a few feet away, its glowing eyes scanning the dark. Its head tilted, listening. Slowly, it turned its face directly toward the shed. The man's blood ran ice cold. He knew it could sense them. The hunter raised its weapon, the blue light glowing brighter. And then, from the woods behind, a loud roar split the night. Something massive was moving, breaking trees as it charged. The hunters turned their heads sharply toward the sound. Weapons ready. The man didn't know what it was. But he knew one thing: it had given them one small chance. He grabbed the girl's arm and whispered urgently, "Run." The roar shook the ground beneath them, echoing through the forest like thunder. The shed trembled as branches snapped in the distance. The hunters froze, their glowing eyes narrowing. One lifted its weapon toward the trees while the other barked something in that harsh, metallic language. For the first time, they looked uncertain. The man didn't wait to think. He grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her toward the broken wall at the back of the shed. The wood was rotten, and with one hard kick, it gave way. Cold air rushed in, along with the smell of damp earth. The dog slipped through first, followed by the girl, her blanket falling away and exposing the faint glow of her skin. The man climbed out last, clutching the wrench he had carried from the shed. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Behind them, the hunters shouted, their voices cutting through the night like knives. The hum of their weapons grew louder. "Run," the man whispered, his breath misting in the freezing air. They sprinted into the woods, the girl stumbling on weak legs. He caught her before she fell, pulling her forward. The dog ran ahead, guiding them through the dark paths he knew well. But above them, the strange machines floated, their searchlights slicing across the forest. The man dragged the girl beneath the cover of a thick pine tree. The beam of light swept over the ground only a few feet away. His heart pounded so hard he thought the hunters would hear it. The girl pressed her glowing crystal tight to her chest, her small hands shaking. Suddenly, she lifted it and whispered a word in her strange tongue. The crystal pulsed, sending out a faint shimmer. For a moment, the air around them bent, twisting like heat waves. The light from the machines passed directly over them, but did not stop. It was as if they had become invisible. The man's eyes widened. "What? What did you do?" he whispered. The girl's voice cracked with weakness, but he understood one word: hide. She had shielded them, but he could see how much it cost her. Her hands shook violently, and sweat glistened on her pale skin despite the cold. She swayed, almost collapsing, and he caught her, pulling her forward again. The roar came again, closer this time. The ground shook as something massive moved through the trees. The hunters shouted, their weapons lighting up the night as they aimed into the dark. Then came a crescent explosion of splintering wood as the creature burst into the clearing. The man caught only a glimpse through the branches. A beast taller than a house with jagged horns and glowing eyes, its skin armored like stone. It swung a clawed arm, smashing one of the hunters into the ground with terrifying force. The other raised its weapon, firing blasts of blue light that scorched the beast's skin but did not stop it. The man pulled the girl away, forcing his legs to move faster. "We don't want to meet that thing," he whispered, though his own fear choked his voice. They ran until his lungs burned. Finally, they stumbled into a clearing where the faint outline of his old car sat under the snow, its metal body frosted white. He yanked open the driver's door and pushed the girl inside. The dog leaped in after her. His hands shook as he turned the key. The engine coughed once, then roared to life. Relief surged through him, but the sound carried far in the silent night. Behind them, a shrill cry rang out. He looked in the mirror. Through the trees, he saw glowing eyes, two hunters sprinting toward them faster than any human could run. "Hold on," he shouted. He slammed his foot on the pedal. The tires spun on the icy ground before catching, and the car lurched forward. The headlights cut through the dark forest as the car bounced over roots and rocks. Branches whipped against the windshield, but he didn't dare slow down. The girl clutched the crystal, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. She looked at him, her voice urgent. "They never stop." The dog barked at the back window as shadows darted between the trees, keeping pace. The hunters moved like predators, their weapons glowing, ready to strike. The man's hands gripped the wheel tight. His mind raced. He had no plan, no idea where to go. But he knew one thing: if they stayed on the road, they would be caught. He veered hard, turning onto an old trail that cut deeper into the forest. The car jolted violently, nearly throwing them off their seats. The girl cried out, but he pressed on. He could hear the hunters behind them, their voices carrying through the trees. Suddenly, a blast of blue light struck the ground beside the car, sending up dirt and sparks. The girl screamed, covering her head. The man swore under his breath and pressed the pedal harder. The old car rattled, its engine screaming, but it surged forward. For a brief moment, they pulled ahead. The hunters fell behind, blocked by thick trees. But the man knew it wouldn't last. They would find another way. He looked at the girl, who sat trembling, clutching her crystal. She met his eyes, and in her broken English, she whispered something that made his blood run cold. "No escape. They hunt forever." Her words hung in the air like a curse, and just as the man thought they might have a chance, the headlights caught something ahead: an iron fence, broken but still standing, surrounding the ruins of an old facility. He had no choice. He swerved through the gap. Inside, the shadows seemed darker. The place was silent, forgotten. But as he drove into the ruins, the girl suddenly gasped, her crystal glowing brighter than ever. She pointed at the shattered walls and whispered one word: "Home." The car skidded to a stop inside the broken gates of the ruined facility. Snow and frost clung to the rusted metal walls, and weeds pushed up through cracks in the concrete. The place looked long abandoned, silent, empty, almost forgotten by time. Yet the girl's glowing eyes fixed on the shattered buildings with strange, sleek recognition. She pressed her small hand against the window, her voice trembling. "Home," she whispered again. Though her voice carried both sadness and fear, the man's grip on the steering wheel tightened. How could this ruin be her home? She was just a child, or, at least, she looked like one. But the way she stared at the walls made his chest tighten with unease. The dog whined low, his ears flat against his head. He sensed something. The man killed the engine. Silence swallowed the air, broken only by the girl's soft breathing. He turned to her. Why here? Why call this place home? She hugged her glowing crystal tightly, shaking her head. Safe before, she said in broken English. Not safe now. Her words made his stomach drop. A sudden sound echoed through the ruins, a distant scrape, like claws dragging across stone. The man's blood chilled. Slowly, he reached for the wrench lying on the seat beside him. The dog growled, staring into the dark. He opened the car door, motioning for silence. The cold air cut into his lungs as he stepped out, boots crunching softly against the frozen ground. The girl followed, clutching the crystal, her faint glow lighting the broken path ahead. The ruins stretched before them, shattered walls, rusted beams, and gaping doorways that looked like open mouths in the dark. The man felt watched, though he could see nothing. Then came the roar. It was deep, monstrous, shaking dust loose from the broken walls. The girl cried out, clutching his arm. The dog barked furiously, his fur bristling. From the shadows, something massive moved. At first, all he saw was darkness shifting between the ruins. Then 2 eyes glowed in the black bright, burning like fire. The creature stepped forward, its claws scraping the ground. Its body was thick with armor-like skin, its shoulders broad enough to smash through walls. It was not like the hunters. This was something worse. Something wild, the girl gasped, her voice breaking. Hunter's beast, she whispered. They send it? The man's heart dropped. The hunters had released this monster to find her. And now, trapped inside the ruins, there was no escape. The beast snarled, its breath steaming in the icy air. It lowered its head, horns glinting in the pale light, ready to charge. Run! The man shouted. They darted through a broken archway, the dog racing ahead. The beast roared and smashed after them, the ground trembling under its weight. Stone crumbled as it forced its way through walls, chasing them into the heart of the ruins. The man's lungs burned as he pulled the girl along. Her glow flickered as she stumbled, but she refused to let go of the crystal. Behind them, the monster's claws tore through concrete like paper. They turned a corner and found themselves in a long corridor of collapsed rooms. The roof above was gone, letting in moonlight. The dog barked at the far end, where a heavy steel door hung half open. Safety, or at least cover, lay beyond it. Go! The man yelled. The girl dashed forward, her small feet slipping on the icy floor. The dog followed, but as the man turned, the beast smashed into the corridor. Debris rained down. Its glowing eyes locked onto him. He gripped the wrench tighter. He knew he couldn't fight it, but he had to slow it down. He shouted, banging the wrench against the wall. The beast roared, focusing on him. Come on, he yelled, backing toward the steel door. Over here. The monster charged, claws slashing. At the last second, he dove through the gap, pulling the door hard behind him. Metal shrieked as the beast slammed into it, shaking the frame. Dust fell from the ceiling. The girl cried out, clutching the crystal. No stop. No stop. The man pressed his back against the door, holding it shut with all his weight. The dog barked wildly, teeth bared. The beast clawed furiously at the door, each strike like thunder. The old hinges bent, screeching. Then the girl stepped forward. Her glowing skin brightened, her markings shining like fire. She held up the crystal, whispering words in her strange language. The stone pulsed, sending waves of light across the walls. For a moment, the pounding stopped. The beast growled, but it did not strike again. The man looked at her, his voice shaking. What did you do?" The girl's eyes glistened with tears. She turned to him, her voice soft but heavy with meaning. "It knows me." Her words sank into him like ice. The beast wasn't just hunting her. It recognized her. The steel door bent under another strike, nearly breaking. The girl's glow flickered. She fell to her knees, weak. The man caught her, lifting her in his arms. His voice was desperate. "Then tell me, what do we do?" The beast roared again, and the door cracked. The girl whispered a single word, her voice fading into the dark. "Run." The steel door cracked under the beast's furious strikes, metal bending inward with every blow. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the walls shook as if the entire ruin might collapse. The man clutched the girl tightly, his heart pounding in his chest. The dog barked at the door, ready to fight even though it was hopeless. The girl's glow dimmed, her crystal pulsing weakly in her small hands. She leaned against the man's chest, whispering in broken English, her voice soft but urgent. "No fight, no escape. Must tell." He lowered his head closer, desperate to hear her words over the beast's roars. "Tell me what? What is this? Why are they after you?" Her glowing eyes filled with sorrow. She pressed the crystal against his chest, as if sharing her burden with him. "Not just girl," she whispered. "Last of my line." The man frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" She looked away, trembling. "My family. My people, all gone. Hunters kill. Only me left. If they take me, hope dies." Her words cut through him like ice. She wasn't just some lost child, she was something greater, something important. A survivor of a fallen people. The last piece of a broken world. The beast struck again, and the steel door ripped free from its hinges, crashing into the floor. The creature stepped into the room, its glowing eyes locking onto the girl. The man pulled her behind him, wrench raised, though he knew it would do nothing. His voice cracked with fear, but also defiance. "You'll have to go through me first." The beast snarled, its hot breath steaming in the cold air. It lowered its head, ready to charge, and then the girl cried out, raising the crystal high. Her entire body lit up, markings glowing brighter than ever. The air shimmered, pushing the beast back a step. The creature roared in anger, clawing at the invisible force between them. The man shielded his eyes from the light. He felt heat rush across his skin, like standing too close to a fire. The girl's voice rose, chanting words he didn't understand. Her small body shook, as if the power inside her was too much to control. Finally, the beast staggered backward, smashing into the wall. It bellowed in rage, but did not come closer. For a moment, the light had forced it back. The girl collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. The crystal dimmed, its glow fading as though it had given everything it could. The man knelt beside her, holding her shoulders. "What was that? What did you just do?" Her eyes met his, full of tears. "Blood of royals," she whispered. "Power. One last gift. But not forever. Only once." The man's mind spun. Royal blood. A fallen people. A power that could stop monsters. It all sounded like something from stories, not real life. And yet here she was, glowing in his arms, hunted by things beyond his imagination. The dog-whined ears pricking up. The man followed his gaze. At the far end of the room, a shadow moved. Not the beast. Something else. Two hunters stepped into the ruins, their armor glowing faintly, weapons raised. They must have followed the sound of the beast's roar. Their masks turned toward the man and the girl. One of them barked words in that metallic language pointing directly at her. The girl shuddered. Her grip on the crystal tightened, but it no longer glowed. Her voice cracked. "Can't. Do again." The man stood, rage and fear boiling inside him. He had nothing, just a broken wrench, a loyal dog, and a child who carried the weight of a whole world. But he refused to hand her over. The hunters moved closer, their weapons humming with deadly light. The man stepped forward, trying to shield her. "She's just a child," he shouted, even though he knew they didn't understand. One hunter tilted its head. Then, in a voice that sent chills down his spine, it spoke in rough, broken English. "Not child key." The girl gasped, tears spilling down her face. She clutched the man's coat, whispering, "They know. They know who I am." The hunters raised their weapons. The dog barked and lunged forward, teeth bared. The man tightened his grip on the wrench, ready to fight even if it meant dying here. The girl suddenly pulled on his sleeve, her voice trembling but fierce. "If I die, they win. You must choose." The words struck him like thunder. She wasn't just asking for protection. She was giving him a choice that could decide her fate. Maybe the fate of her entire people. The hunters took another step closer, their weapons glowing brighter. The beast outside roared again, shaking the ruins. Chaos surrounded them. The girl's glowing eyes locked onto his. "Choose," she whispered. The man's breath caught in his throat. His heart pounded. The dog growled. The hunters raised their weapons, ready to fire, and he knew he had only seconds to decide. The hunters stood only a few feet away, their weapons glowing with deadly blue light. The ruined walls shook as the beast roared outside, slamming its massive body against stone and steel. Dust fell from above, the ground trembling with every strike. The girl clutched her crystal tightly, her glowing eyes locked on the man. Her words echoed in his mind, "You must choose." The man's throat tightened. He wanted to protect her, but he knew the truth. He was only human. The wrench in his hand was nothing against these armored killers. Yet, in the girl's face, he saw something more than fear. He saw hope. She wasn't asking him to fight for her, she was asking him to choose her life over his own. The dog barked furiously, stepping between the hunters and the girl, teeth bared. Ready to defend even against impossible odds, one hunter lifted its weapon higher. Its broken English came out like grinding metal. "Give the key." The man swallowed hard, his voice steady despite his fear. "No." The hunters tilted their heads, surprised by his defiance. The girl's eyes widened, shimmering with tears. The man knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on her small shoulder. "You're going to live," he whispered. "Whatever it takes." She shook her head, sobbing softly. "But you die." He managed a weak smile. "Better me than you." The hunters aimed, the blue glow building in their weapons. The beast outside roared again, shaking the ground as it forced its way closer. There was no time left. The man looked at the girl. "Use it," he said firmly. "Whatever power you have left, save yourself." She trembled, clutching the crystal. "But only once. Only one." His voice rose above the hunter's growls. "Then don't waste it on me. Use it to escape." The girl's tears glowed as they slid down her cheeks. For a moment, she looked like a child again, not a royal heir. Not the last of a dying people, just a frightened, fragile child. But then, slowly, her face hardened. She nodded. The hunters fired. The girl screamed, lifting the crystal high. A wave of blinding light exploded outward, flooding the ruins in white fire. The man shielded his eyes, but even through closed lids, he saw the brilliance. The air shook as if the world itself was breaking. The hunters were thrown back, their weapons shattering, their armored bodies crashing into the walls. The beast outside howled in rage, stumbling as the light struck it too. Its roar echoed as it fled into the forest, vanishing into the night. And then silence. The man blinked against the fading light. The hunters lay still, their armor cracked and sparking. The beast was gone. The ruins were quiet, save for the faint hum of the dying crystal in the girl's hands. She collapsed to the ground, her glow dimming. The man caught her, holding her close. Her breathing was weak, but she was alive. He brushed her tangled hair from her face. "You did it," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You're safe." Her lips trembled. "Not safe. Forever, they come." Again, he didn't argue. He knew she was right. The hunters would never stop. But for tonight, she had survived. And he had chosen her future over his own. The first light of dawn crept into the ruins, painting the broken walls with pale gold. The man looked at it with tired eyes, feeling the weight of everything he had seen. His dog pressed close to him, silent now. As if understanding the cost of what had just happened, the girl stirred, her small hand gripping his coat. "You, human," she whispered, her voice soft but full of wonder. "Why help?" He met her glowing eyes, his voice steady but gentle. "Because you needed me. And sometimes that's all that matters." She closed her eyes, her breathing slow but calm. The crystal dimmed completely, its light gone. But the warmth of her small hand remained in his. The man looked back, toward the forest. For a moment, he thought he saw movement shadows slipping between the trees. And then, a figure appeared, standing tall at the edge of the ruins. Its shape was hidden by distance, but its voice carried clearly through the morning air. "The humans have chosen a side." The man's blood ran cold. He tightened his arms protectively around the girl. Whoever that figure was, it wasn't finished. This night had ended, but a greater storm was coming. The dawn rose, bright and cold, over the broken ruins. The girl slept in his arms, fragile yet filled with power. The dog stood watch at his side, and the man knew that his choice had changed everything, not just for her, but perhaps for all of humanity.